Lisa and I welcome Sierra Sil to our podcast. Got a grumpy old man in your life? Change that. Okay, not that way. Sierra Sil Natural Mineral Joint Pain Relief with a money-back guarantee at Shoppers, London Drugs, and the best health food stores.
Head over to sierrasil.com, SIERRASIL.com. Use your code GF and get 10% off your purchase.
Hi there, I'm Erin Davis.
I'm Lisa Brandt, and this is Gracefully and Frankly, episode 28.
Thank you so much for being here for this one, and if you want to go back to the early ones, you're more than welcome to. They're all there waiting for you. It's all thanks to Envy Pillow, our sponsors, right out of the box or out of the lovely mulberry silk pillowcase, if you prefer.
I hear from people all the time, you probably do too, Erin, who want to know whether it's really worth it to spend a little more on an Envy Pillow. And the short answer is yes, but the long answer is, why would you spend weeks deciding on a mattress, buy high thread count sheets? You know, in our case, we have that noise canceling machine, blackout curtains, all this stuff to make sure you have a good night's sleep, and then buy a $10 pillow. It doesn't make sense. So one of the things I love about my travel Envy Pillow is that when I'm in a hotel, I know where my pillow has been. You know, I'm not one of those people who worry about putting a black light on the comforter. I want to know what's been happening with the pillow.
Don't ever. There was a Monk episode about that.
I know, I saw
But
it.
the other question is, why would we take on an entire career, both of ours, and just throw away our reputation, which can be ruined in 5 minutes, by endorsing and partnering with a company that wasn't completely full of integrity from not only the products and their ingredients, but also their return policy. It's worth you taking the time and going to envypillow.com to read more about them, why Envy Pillow is a perfect fit. And we were customers long before they said, we'd really like to sponsor your podcast. And we can get you a discount. We know people.
Yes, we do know people. You can get 10% off no matter what you buy on the site by using the code GF and enjoy the best night's sleep your face has ever had.
And the rest of you. Coming up, we've got a great show on tap for you. We're going to talk about stuff being thrown at concerts, best before versus expiry dates, why it's a great thing they may be getting rid of those. And a documentary that we think is going to give you a really good ride in the Wayback Machine and put a smile on your face.
Get your short shirts ready and your white T-shirts.
Well, I want to start by thanking you for your inspiration last week through your therapist. I had ice cream last week.
You had your licorice ice cream, yes.
And I understand there's white licorice ice cream, but no, this was as black as the asphalt on the roads. And it was wonderful. My sister Leslie couldn't believe it when I told her that there was this place about 10 minutes from where we were staying in Parksville, British Columbia, with her grandson and our grandson. And when I told her there was black licorice, she almost lost it. And eventually with black licorice ice cream, you do. But I promised we weren't going to talk about poo anymore. Oh, my God, it was so good. So thank you for kind of giving me permission, Lisa. Isn't that silly?
Well, you know, it's Damien. I mean, my therapist, he reminds me that life is short and we need to do things that we enjoy once in a while. So, yeah, a little ice cream. It's summertime, for goodness sake. Can I tell you one little bathroom story that has nothing to do with the toilet itself?
Okay, because I'm the one who made the vow. You didn't. So go ahead.
Well, this is just one of those people don't get me moments. You know, we talk about this, like people just, you know, don't get
us.
So I was at this event and I happened to go into the washroom and it separates into men and women. So there's a man there and there's a woman there on either side. And I realized I had my phone with me and I went, guess I don't really need this, whatever. And everybody kind of laughed. She's taking her phone with her into the washroom. I went in and locked the door. And then I said, does anybody need anything from Amazon? Which I thought was hilarious. And I got nothing. Nothing.
Oh. Oh my God, that's great. Thank you. And so timely. Prime Days were just this week. So, yeah. Do you usually get sucked into Prime Days, by the way?
Actually, I don't think I've ever bought anything on a Prime Day. I look at an offer and I don't usually see anything that I really want. Why, do you?
No, I'll take a look and then just see if it's cheaper someplace else. But no, generally not. My stupidest purchase lately was this beautiful turquoise dog bed that goes in our living room so beautifully. And Dottie, our dog, who's, coming up on a year and a half now, she's got a little former children's chair, puffy thing that she likes to lie in. So I bought this thing because it was so perfect for the decor. And does she go in it? What do you think?
No.
Right now, as we record, she has her face resting in it in my studio while she's chewing on a collagen stick. But other than that, we'll see. So I've got some guilt about that. But can we talk about guilt while shopping?
Sure.
And the piece that CBC put out on, I think it was Monday, about people now stealing with such regularity from the self-checkouts that stores like Walmart and Canadian Tire are starting to ask to check receipts on the way out.
Yeah.
And of course, people are outraged. And I don't get the outrage because it's like the people, the few who ruin it for the rest of us. If we're a little bit on the honor system there, and basically we are, then they ruin it. What do you think? You have to use self-checkout now and again.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember what the thing was that I accidentally stole. What happened was two of these things, whatever they were flat, stuck together. And so when I scanned it and put it in the bag, I guess it wasn't heavy enough for it to register, which I find kind of suspect because they're super sensitive. But I always used to think, like in the bulk food stores, they'd have these signs that say, no sampling, please don't sample, instead of saying stealing. And I used to think, why don't they just weigh us on the way in and the way out? And then they'll know, you know.
Good idea. You did a Costco shop. So, on the way out, you show your receipt and they kind of give it a cursory glance. I think they're looking for somebody who's got a side of beef under their cart that they haven't paid for. But I get it. And again, same thing with Loblaws. They have started checking people's receipts, and it's because of theft. Now, some people are outraged, but I think that it's the price of living in a society where food is so expensive. Some people can't afford it. Some people are just going to steal to get back at the man. And I don't have anything to feel guilty about, so I don't mind it. Am I being naive?
No, I agree with you. It's kind of like when they started putting cameras everywhere and people were outraged saying, oh, we're going to be tracked everywhere we go. People are going to know everywhere we go. And I just don't think I'm that fascinating. It really doesn't bother me if somebody sees me go into one store or another. I don't care. And as far as checking the receipt goes, I've got nothing to hide. So I don't really care. It just doesn't bother me. I don't know. Maybe we're both naive, but I just don't see a reason to get all up in arms about it. I mean, all the things that are going on in the world, you have to stop for 15 seconds to have somebody look at your receipt. And how can they check it that perfectly anyway? It's got to be just about knowing that you're going to be stopped.
Right.
It has to be, right?
The illusion of security, kind of like going through the airport. But it's really kind of fascinating how it is that people do steal from the self-checkouts. And I know that our listeners aren't looking for any ideas, so I don't feel like, if we were doing a radio show, people would say, why are you giving people ideas?
Right.
But putting in carrots when they're weighing produce instead of, say, I don't know, a much more expensive vegetable or fruit, knowing that the weight of carrots is going to be way cheaper than the weight of grapes, for example. So that's one way. Another way is to put something in the bag and then just kind of slide the stakes in at the same time. Or, I would imagine it's watching that person who is in charge of keeping an eye on the self-checkout. And when he or she is called over to somebody like me who doesn't know how things work, then that's when you put the lobster or whatever. And it's not even lobster. I'm being facetious. It can be staples for some people who just can't afford them to put them into their bags. But there have to be guardrails. I mean, why do people think that the honor system is going to work in a society where a lot of people just aren't honorable or don't care?
Right. I noticed that at the grocery store I go to most often, they have a limit now on self-checkout. It can only be 25 items or less. I'm assuming that's to, one, to keep people moving, and two, so that they can keep half an eye on what's going on. They don't have a full buggy of stuff. I didn't ask, but that's my guess. So they just want you using it when you go in for a few items. But they've also doubled the self-checkout area. So I just don't like going through the grocery line. Depending on who I get, sometimes it's fantastic. But when you're stuck with somebody who just wants to complain and tell you they've got a double shift and all that kind of stuff, it's such an unpleasant experience. I feel like a hostage because there's nothing I can do until they check it all through. And that's happened a few times. So it's made me a little gun shy.
Yeah. Now, here in our little town nearby of Sydney, it's always a social experience. Like, oh, it's kind of like the Saturday Night Live skit, like Target. Oh, where'd you get these? And it's really cute. Oh, are these good? Wow, this is a really great price. I'll have to check these out and that sort of thing. And it turns into, I think that they've been told to be social. So I'm fine with that. We don't have enough interaction. And Sydney has a lot of seniors, and this could be the highlight of their day.
Yeah.
But you tweeted something the other day about a cashier experience, and I wonder, can you tell us the story behind that? Because it was such a succinct tweet that I wanted to know immediately what you meant.
Okay, so this kid, he's got to be working this summer in high school. He's big for his age, but you can tell he's quite young. And when I got up to his lane in our little grocery store, there was like he was either overtired or whatever, and there was no interaction. He was just like, this was the worst thing you'd have to. He's dragging my peppers across the scale. He just looked like, The Walking Dead, like a zombie. So my tweet was just kind of like how funny it was, because I found it amusing. It didn't bother me or anything. I just thought it was kind of funny that he's already just so apathetic and checked out when he's living at his parents' place. He's not it's like those little memes you see about, oh, I love it when the dog sighs when they don't have to have a job or worry about a mortgage or any of that stuff. I kind of felt, this kid was the same. And it's funny because one woman responded and said, I don't understand this at all. My 3 boys all worked and they were responsible and had jobs. And I thought, did you not see the word apathetic and dead-eyed? I mean, I would think your kids were enthusiastic. So that's all. It just struck me as funny that we remember being teenagers. We had really nothing to complain about, but we did.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had my sister and her daughter and her grandson, not by that daughter, but by her late son, with us last week. And Ava, the daughter, works at one of the big grocery stores in Kelowna, and she loads things, and she takes care of things that are expired and about to expire. She's on the hotline to her parents saying, okay, get here. This is going to be expiring in 3 hours and you're going to get a great deal. So it's fantastic because Leslie and Paul buy all their food discount, and Paul is the king of no food waste. He's the cook for the house. Whatever's left over is going into tomorrow's meal. And I love that. I think that reruns and just using every bit of food in your fridge is fantastic for so many reasons. But I was stunned to learn that Canada leads the world in food waste. That surprises me somehow.
It surprises me too, because we're always hearing about programs where restaurants and other places are taking their food to food banks and trying to keep people fed. I find that very surprising. I thought we did a pretty good job of that. I guess not.
I don't know what it is. I mean, I thought we were raised better than that, but maybe not, or maybe it's the kind of disposable generation that has come after us. I'm not sure what it is, or just in the internet age where everyone has so much information about what can happen if you eat something that's a couple days old. Now, I know in your case, you are super, super careful about food poisoning because you were really, really seriously ill because of that once. Mm-hmm. So you may come at this from a more sensitive place than me.
I don't know. I think some of what you have said and done has rubbed off on me. So I'm a little less picky, but I probably was at one point, but I think I'm less so. I trust my nose.
Yeah.
It's like if the milk has so-called expired and it still smells good, well, then what's the problem? But I think I have changed, and I think I can thank your influence for that. You eating that really super old cheese at one time, that cream cheese.
Yeah. And I'm like that with yogurt. If it expired 2 months ago and it hasn't been opened, it's still perfect. It's still perfect. So I was very excited to share with you a story that actually our daughter-in-law, Brooke, sent to us about Health Canada may be starting to relax or eliminate expiry dates or best before dates. Which is it? I get them mixed up.
I don't even know. Do they even use expired? I think they do on medication, but I think it's mostly the best before thing because people treat it like it's an expiry date. It's best before. It's at its peak before this date. And then any day after that, it goes. My mother was like that. She would, and she didn't like to waste anything, but she would be so scared of getting bacteria or getting a bug or something that she would get rid of things. And I think that's a problem. I bought some food from a specialty store one time and they have freeze by dates on it. So if you don't eat it by a certain date, throw it in the freezer. And I like that idea because then you're not tempted to get rid of it. It'll get eaten another time.
It will. And we do that all the time. You know, if you go into the store and it says enjoy tonight, that means it's getting very close to its so-called best before date or whatever. And if we don't enjoy it tonight, we put it in the freezer. And it just seems like it's such a no-brainer when people are trying to save money. But I love to see that story because of the people who look at it like the ball dropping in Times Square when this is going to suddenly turn rancid. It's just not true. It's not true. And we are throwing away so much good food.
Maybe your brother-in-law Paul is like this. I don't know. My brother's like this. He can see an onion and half a cabbage and a can of tomatoes and make something amazing out of it. You know, he doesn't waste anything either. I'm not quite like that. I need a recipe book, a guide, and maybe one day a personal chef. I don't know about you, Aaron. I could guess, but I was never really a fan of Wham. Would you have called yourself a Wham fan?
Yeah, I mean, we played them on the radio. They had such enormous hits, Wake Me Up Before You Go, and so many others. And then, of course, Careless Whisper. Yeah, I thought George Michael was just drop dead gorgeous. And Andrew Ridgeley, I didn't really know too much about. He was kind of, you know, the Ringo of the duo.
Yeah.
But boy, did we have our eyes opened. Wow.
Yeah, did we ever? The documentary on Netflix is pretty incredible. Careless Whisper, I think, was the one song that I would agree that I really liked, but I didn't really get into George Michael until he went solo and then became a huge massive fan. But to see how much Andrew Ridgeley was a part of Wham, like it just sort of seemed like he was riding George's coattails. And in a way, you could say that he was, but it was deliberate because George was so much more talented. And the fact that they were buddies, such close friends. And you made a really good observation about, you know, it doesn't really matter who gets the credit as long as you're doing the best work, right? And that's kind of how Andrew, I came away with such affection for him as to how he treated his friend.
Yeah, me too. They'd been friends since grade school. And it turns out, by some accounts, and they do use George's voice in this, so it's not all about Andrew Ridgeley kind of rewriting history to say, hello, I was the star of the duo, because that's not how it comes off, and I don't think how it was intended. But people mistook him as you say, the coattail rider, when really it was George who was so introverted and so insecure that he would emulate Andrew in being just kind of goofy and out there and show busy. And then, of course, Andrew was the guy behind the short shorts and the style that Wham put out there at a time when, you know, Sid Vicious and all those guys were screaming and tearing at their limbs. So it was kind of the anti-rough and angry scene that was going on in British music at the time. And they really felt that pop was important and that they had a message. But I was taken by a couple of things. One of them was how much George Michael looked like Princess Diana. And and you're going to think I'm nuts, but he did that whole thing with the face down and looking up through the eyebrows. And you saw it so many times. And I thought, oh, look who he's emulating here. It was really very interesting. He was, of course, closeted.
Yeah.
And did not want to come out in the midst of their pop success because that would have derailed the message of their music. But finally got his props as a writer, and then he really started off on his own.
It really stuck out to me, too, that he was just a juggernaut, that Andrew Ridgeley, without his influence in bringing him sort of out as an artist, he might never have happened.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He had that fuel and that support. I never saw the Diana thing, but now that you mention it, especially with that hair, the way he had it swept back and everything.
Yeah, swept across the feathers.
And Diana's famous facial stubble. No, I'm just kidding. And,
read more in this week's National Examiner. Yeah.
Somebody on Twitter sent me like a boatload of tweets about it asking, didn't I think this and didn't I think that? And I kind of took the program for what it was. I didn't sit there and analyze it. But one of the things he said was, why did they never show Andrew Ridgeley now? And one of the comments from a producer was, because we can't show George Michael. And it just would have come off like the Andrew Ridgeley show.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, that was a conscious decision not to show him in that. And to me, that makes perfect sense. They certainly had a lot of audio of George Michael talking about the beginning. I just found it so charming. I realized about 40 minutes into it, I was smiling the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a wonderful wayback machine into a fun friendship and a crazy 4-year ride that they did on their own terms, which is really kind of cool.
It's like that ice cream that your therapist gave us permission for. Just enjoy it for what it is and learn more about the story behind somebody you probably didn't give a whole lot of thought to.
That's right. Probably did not. And once George Michael became this massive solo performer, I mean, before he died, which was Christmas Day, and I believe I want to say 6 years ago, 7 now?
2016, yep.
So before I went on holidays, as I often did when I was feeling kind of overwhelmed or whatever, I cranked his Freedom 90 in my office, closed the door. And then he died that Christmas. It was like that was the last song I heard before I left the radio station for Christmas holidays. But it wasn't unusual because that's one of my absolute favorite songs. Not Freedom, the Wham song. Freedom 90, the George Michael song.
Freedom.
Yes, with all the supermodels in the video.
When you mentioned George Michael and Christmas, just to wrap up this topic, we didn't want to make it the Wham show or a review of something on Netflix, but he so badly wanted to have a fourth number one the year that he wrote Last Christmas. And I found it was such a great story that along comes Bob Geldof and Live Aid and Do They Know It's Christmas, which kept Wham out of the number one spot that year. But what they did was they donated all their royalties from Last Christmas from that year to perpetuity to the Live Aid charity.
Yeah.
And now he did make it to number one. That song did make it to number one Last Christmas in the year 2020. So there you go, George. You got your Christmas number one.
He finally got it. He wasn't here to see it, but it finally happened. So that's great. It's hard to write a Christmas song that has legs that people want to hear over and over again. It's all kind of been done. So that was a great song.
It was. So again, it's the Wham documentary on Netflix Canada. And if you can catch it, it'll make you feel good, mostly, I think.
I think so. Maybe even dance a little.
So what would they be throwing at Wham these days? Well, we've all heard about this trend where audiences are actually injuring artists on stage during concerts. This is crazy.
In my mom's day, they used to throw panties, which are nice and soft and don't have much get up and go. They just land on the stage. I mean, it started with this one young woman getting hit in the eye, and the guy said he threw the phone so that she'd take a selfie. Harry Styles got hit, and that's where I draw the line.
Ugh.
You do not hit Harry Styles. I'm sorry. It's just, it's really getting stupid. And Adele went on this giant rant, and I don't blame her, saying, Adele's got a potty mouth, saying that you'll get kicked out if it happens. I just do not get it. I know that when bands start out in bars, sometimes people get hammered and throw a beer bottle.
Yep.
But at a giant stadium where you paid a ton of money, I don't understand.
I mean, it goes back at least 60 years. The Beatles would be pelted by jelly beans and stuff like that, which you can imagine could have a little bit of heft. And of course, Tom Jones with the underwear. You think the underwear is harmless, Lisa, but when we think about our mother's underwear, there was a smothering danger.
Yes, one woman threw a corset and it was all over.
It was. Now, if it was Wayne Newton, it would bounce right back off. Jeez. But we're talking about a projectile like a cell phone, and this is what I don't get. When you tell me that it was maybe to get a selfie, okay, somehow in some teen-addled brain, that might make sense. But your cell phone, let's say it's $500, $600, you've thrown it, it's broken now, you're not getting that thing back, and you've risked injuring the artist. Like, give your head a shake. And for a lot of people, their cell phone is life.
The only thing I can think of is mom or dad will replace it because there's no way. Otherwise, I mean, how are kids affording to go to these concerts anyway? I'm not saying all of them, but the only thing I can think of is that the phone just doesn't mean that much because they know they can get it replaced.
Yeah.
And I'm not commenting on an entire generation.
No.
Just on idiots who throw their phone at artists.
Yeah. And I remember, there's a frenzy that you get into when you finally get to see the band or the artist that you have loved for so long, and it's actually happening. When I was at a McCartney concert, there was somebody who kept flashing, holding up this sign saying, I don't know, some message. And finally, McCartney said, okay, I see you, because it's got to be distracting to the artist. They're already trying to remember 1,000,006 lyrics. And then you got this person with a sign up there, and it's like, okay, just put it down. I'm reading that every time I'm supposed to be singing Eleanor Rigby. It's my mom's birthday. I want you to sing it to her. Oh God, we've sung again in this episode. Oops. But you know what I mean.
Not to mention how many heads they're blocking with their stupid sign. That's the other thing about concerts is all the people who just don't care about anybody else.
I know. I spent all this money to look at your butt.
Yeah.
But now we're sounding old because I never mind being on my feet for a concert if everybody else is. I might get a little dancing, and God knows I did when I got to see ELO in the past 5 years. We never thought we would see the Electric Light Orchestra in person because I was a kid. I was a preteen or an early teenager when they were huge in the 70s. And of course, we lived in the boonies. There was no way I was going to get to Toronto to see them. And so to see them as an adult was otherworldly. Who would you go see now, Lisa, that you couldn't get to see as a teenager?
Do you know, I don't think anybody, to tell you the truth, if AC/DC was still touring now, I wouldn't do it because of the crowd.
Yeah.
No, I think I'm done with concerts. And it's not the standing up thing. It's not all that stuff. It's just so many people, and it's just not an environment that I'm comfortable in anymore. I got to see Tommy Shaw, who was one of my absolute favorites. I have pictures of the two of us talking, and he's holding both of my hands. I can just look at that for the rest of my life. Saw Def Leppard live. They were somebody I really wanted to see. Saw the DeFranco family. I know the jealousy. The jealousy.
Heartbeat. It's a love beat.
Heartbeat. It's a love beat. And for anybody who cares, Tony DeFranco is a real estate agent in California and doing very well. And no longer sings or wears shirts open to the navel or any of that stuff.
Okay, you got to go back and help me. Who's Tommy Shaw? Styx?
Oh, sorry. Yes, Styx.
Oh,
and the thing is with Tommy Shaw, I mean, I've been such a fan. I still have one of his solo albums, and I mentioned it to him, and he just went, whoa. Like, it came out in 1984 or something. It was called Girls with Guns, and he could not believe. And I said, I can sing you every song right now, and he's like, oh, please don't. But, yeah.
Please throw your underwear at me instead. So I have to tell you this story. Last Monday was our daughter-in-law Brooke's birthday.
Yeah.
And I know how much a fan she is of a certain Blue Jay. So when I was at the Jays game way back, just their second day that they were home, so sometime in April, I made a point of buying her a jersey. And then for the past, at least 2 months, I have been sweating. You see, I got the jersey with a name on it, Alek Manoah. Manoah is like the star pitcher for the Jays, and then his arm fell off. He had to go down to basically almost basic training and start over again. Well, I've got this jersey. and it was sitting in my closet, and I'm going, oh no. It's the kiss of death buying a jersey with a player's name on it, Lisa. If you go to a game and you see all the names of the players who, like Donaldson, Pilar, all the ones you thought were going to be there were Blue Jays forever. No, and they're gone. Now, we have to hope that Vladdy Guerrero Jr.'s Jays jersey is going to be around on him for a while.
Right.
What a moment the other night in the home run derby.
Yeah.
But back to this one. So I bought this Manoah jersey, and then at the end of last week, he started again. And he threw the most magnificent game against the Detroit Tigers.
Phew.
He won. He was back. And so when she opened that bag on Monday, just the surprise and delight on her face and mine that it was a Manoah jersey and that he was back with the Jays again. It was just a really nice kind of a birthday treat.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm so glad it turned out.
It could have gone all kinds of ways wrong, like it's just such a gamble. And it takes me back to concerts for a second. When you spend hundreds of dollars on a sports ticket like we did with Colin and just to see the Leafs trounced by the lowly Vancouver Canucks, that's the chance you take and it hurts. But with a concert, it's money well spent as long as the artist doesn't turn his back on you and play none of his favorites like Van Morrison.
Right.
But it's money well spent because you are getting that ride into the best times of your life.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I prefer to see comedy over anything when it comes to a concert. The John Mulaney show that I saw, which is now his latest special, I have a T-shirt that says, I saw him when he just got out of rehab. So, you end up with some pretty cool souvenirs sometimes, too.
And on that note, we have no souvenirs for you from episode 28, but just want to thank you for staying engaged with us at Gracefully and Frankly on our Facebook page. We're not on Threads yet, but Lisa and I are individually.
Right.
If you want to join us on the new Threads app, which has well over 100 million members, it's Jeff Zuckerberg poking Elon Musk in the eye, and anybody who does that is my friend. So I'm at Aaron Dawn, D-A-W-N Davis. And what's your Threads handle, Lisa?
Lisa M, as in Michael or Michelle, Brandt, B-R-A-N-D-T.
All right. So you can follow us there. We're on Twitter at G&F the podcast and just anywhere else. But most of all, thanks for connecting here. We so appreciate it. We appreciate you.
We do.
And thanks to Envy Pillow as well. And if all goes well, we'll see you again next week. Okay, Lisa?
Oh, yes. I'm expecting all to go well.
Why? What do you know?
I don't know.
If we're not arrested for stealing something we didn't mean to. Okay, bye.
Bye.